Democratic Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. And David Ignatius, I defer the first question to you. You can see if the good senator, has read your book or not.
You know, I'm eager for bipartisan plugs, but Senator, let me ask you about the other big event yesterday, which was the questioning of the Deputy Attorney General Robert Rosenstein before your committee. Were you satisfied with the answers that he gave on the big question that people have been discussing this week, which is whether the president might or might have authority to fire the special counsel Robert Mueller?
Well, David, I was encouraged by the number of senators, Republicans and Democrats, who pressed Rod Rosenstein about Bob Mueller, about whether he would fire him, about what he thinks is the scope of the president's authority through him to direct his firing. He made it very clear that he would only fire him for cause and that he understood the statute to require that he have cause, and he gave details in writing and said he saw no reason for Bob Mueller to be fired. I was not satisfied with the absence of the Attorney General, and my questioning of Rod Rosenstein really focused on what I think is the reasons that the Attorney General has violated the scope of his recusal from any matters involving the investigations into the presidential campaigns. And I got a very unsatisfying answer from Rod Rosenstein. This was just another moment when Attorney General Sessions had initially committed to appear in front of our subcommittee and at the last moment changed and appeared in front of a different committee.
Do you, Senator, have any sense about what former FBI Director James Comey was referring to when he said that there were problematic issues involving Attorney General Sessions that would lead to his recusal? The Attorney General refused absolutely to deal with that question when it was put to him by Ron Wyden. Do you have any insight into that?
I don't have any specific insight into that. That was discussed further by fired FBI Director Jim Comey in a closed session of the Intelligence Committee. There are press reports about what that might have been about, but that's exactly why I think the Attorney General and the former FBI Director should appear in front of the Judiciary Committee. We have jurisdiction over the FBI, over the Department of Justice, and we have not had the Attorney General in front of us. And we have not had the opportunity to question Attorney General Sessions either about the ongoing operations of the Department of Justice under his leadership, which he is supposed to appear before us about every year, or about this specific issue relating to the firing of Jim Comey.
Senator, I guess you could view, if you were charitable enough, you could view yesterday's Senate hearing as a portrait of patience among the United States senators. But here we had the Attorney General of the United States sitting before a Senate panel trying to get to the bottom of an act of war against us by Russia. Right. And you had the Attorney General consistently refusing to answer questions or being intentionally evasive in answering questions. And I'm wondering why no one has raised the issue of citing the Attorney General for contempt.
That's a great question, Mike. I'll tell you, it was deeply troubling to see someone as aggressive in his patriotism as a senator, bobbing and weaving as Attorney General, and clearly, from the record, disinterested in the details of Russia's attack on our democracy in our last election. Former FBI Director Comey was very clear in his testimony last week to the Intelligence Committee that Russia engaged in a broad, sweeping, thorough, and aggressive interference in our 2016 election, and if we don't do more to push back on them, to impose costs on them, and to prepare for our next elections, we will really suffer significant consequences, because they're just going to keep coming.
Casey.
Senator, there was a little bit of a discrepancy between what Jim Comey said in his testimony about his conversation with the Attorney General, where he essentially made this plea, don't leave me alone with the president. Jim Comey said the Attorney General said nothing. The Attorney General yesterday testified to basically the opposite. He said he did respond. I'm wondering who you believe.
Well, frankly, I found the FBI Director to be a very credible witness. I think there were a number of ways in which the Attorney General's testimony about some of these key meetings corroborated core aspects of the FBI Director's story, but there were a few differences, as you referenced. That's why I'm encouraged that we have Bob Mueller as special counsel, continuing to investigate the possibility of obstruction by the president and by senior members of his team. And I'm optimistic that the scope of recusal question that I've been pressing it is being taken up by Special Counsel Mueller.
All right, Senator Chris Coons, thank you so much. And